In the comments on my previous videos about the Gen 6 Glock, I've had several people ask if you can swap the slides from the Gen 5 to the Gen 6 and vice versa. Kind of, but not really. This will be quick. Let's get into it. Shooter, make ready. Are you ready? Stand by. Can you put a Gen 5 slide on the Gen 6 frame? And can you put the Gen 6 slide on the Gen 5 frame? The answer to the first one is, kind of. And my answer to the second one is, no, not really. Let me explain. The biggest hang-up that we're going to get to here is in the back plates. So I want to point out a couple shape differences here so we can talk about it later. You can see here on the Gen 5, these lines are straight as this goes around. It's one straight width. Okay? On the Gen 6, you see how this comes up and narrows a little bit? Right here it narrows slightly. They're a different shape. Additionally, you can see there's a bigger gap here than there is on the Gen 5. So in that center tab there, they've lifted it so that it can clear this part of the frame. And that part of the frame wasn't as prominent, so this stuck down further. There's this little notch here. Okay, this has been cut wider in order to get around that. This is just a solid square. So those are the main differences in shape there. Again, this is going to end up being our backup, our big hang up. But the next thing we need to talk about real quick is springs. So we're going to talk springs, and then we'll go back to that back plate here in a moment. Okay, let me take these apart and show you the difference in the springs. And I'm at my workbench here, and there is no ammo allowed in this area. So all the ammo is elsewhere. I don't bring any of it here. So guns have been cleared. We're good. I clear them all way before ahead of time. Okay. Here are the two springs. On the Gen 5, they had this dual spring system. And apparently Glock had a little bit of reliability issues. I've never had an issue. I've never seen anyone have an issue, but I've heard about them. And any reliability issue isn't good enough for Glock, so they've gone back to basically what was the Gen 3 and springs that are here. So nice, they're going back to something that there's an abundance of in the aftermarket. Okay, the reason this spring will not fit is on the frame of the Gen 6, this area here narrows. So as the spring comes back here, it will not go back further. Now, could somebody take a Dremel to it? And sure, of course, right? You can break anything to make it work, but natively it doesn't fit. And when somebody's asking me, can I put that slide over there? Most of the time they're asking because they're not somebody that's going to be working on guns. They're asking if they can just move it over there. The answer to that is no, you can't. You cannot just take this slide as it exists and put it onto the Gen 6 frame. No, you're going to have to dance a little bit, which is, it's doable, but you're going to have to dance a little bit. This won't work. So that's going to have to come off the Gen 5 slide in order to make it fit on the Gen 6 frame. Now, the Gen 6 spring won't work in the Gen 5 slide because it just floats right through there. See that? Luckily, there are some adapters out there in the market. This is my Gen 5 that I have an adapter in because I put an uncaptured stainless guide rod in it. This adapter can solve the problem. So these adapters are all the way, there are a bunch of them out there. It fits perfectly in the Gen 5 slide. That allows the Gen 3 or Gen 6 spring to fit in there like this. And now I'm golden. Okay? That part is fixed. I can slide that in place. And now I'm back to our original problem that I talked about at the beginning. The back plate here, this is the Gen 5 back plate, will not work with the Gen 6 frame. Could someone modify it with a Dremel? Possibly, I suppose. I don't think that's a good idea, but could it be done? Sure. Okay. The other alternative is, well, why don't we just swap the back plates? Okay, we can do that. Let's look at the back plates again. We talked about this a minute ago. I'm going to go and take this barrel out of here so it's not rattling around on me. Let's talk back plates. Okay, I'm going to remove the back plate from the Gen 5. There it is. And I'm going to remove the back plate from the Gen 6. Okay. Will the Gen 6 back plate fit on the Gen 5 frame? Kind of. It will go in there, but you see it wants to twist. It wants to slide around. See how it wants to pop out of there? It's narrower than the channel is here. Now, once you get it down towards the bottom, it seems to hold. So I'm going to go ahead and push it down in place. Get it where it needs to be here. And then if I push down and push, it'll go into place and click in there. There we go. Hear that? Okay. Will it fit? Sure. Does it fit perfectly? Yeah, I don't know. It seems to be safe. It seems to be solid. I don't think people would have issues there. But again, this shape was not meant to fit in this frame. The frame does not narrow in the same way that the part does. But it seems to hold and it seems to be okay. I have not put any rounds through this, but there are people out there saying this is what they've done and it works. So now I have the Gen 6 spring, the Gen 6 back plate. That seems to work just fine. Can you put the Gen 5 slide on the Gen 6 frame? Yes, with some work and some slight, not permanent modifications, some changes you have to make. Yes, you can make it work. You can dance a little and make this work. But can you go the other way? I'm going to say no. I would not recommend you do that. I'm not even going to recommend you do this. Just that doesn't seem right to me. But it admittedly, it seems to work. So I'm not saying anything would go wrong, but I'm not a big fan of this part not being perfectly fit into the slide. It would probably be just fine. Okay. But I have essentially gone from 2 functioning guns down to 1 because I don't believe you should go the other direction. Now, I would need to have another spring, but again, there's an abundance in the aftermarket of the Gen 3 spring, so you could make that work. So let's just assume for a minute that I have another Gen 3 spring or a Gen 6 spring because they're obtainable out there. And I put the barrel in, dummy. Okay. And I put that spring in. Okay, good. Now, that will make this function. Perfect. Okay, no problem. Will this backplate fit? No, it will not. That's as far as it will go. Right there, and it stops. Okay? It is wider here and will not go into the channel on the back of the Gen 6 slide. Now, could someone modify it to make it fit? Sure, I suppose someone could. I don't think you should. Okay? Now, you can probably figure out a way to get a hold of another Gen 6 backplate, have 2 of the Gen 6 backplates, and maybe that would work okay. I just would be nervous about modifying this one, and then if I ever wanted to go back to the other gun, I've compromised its integrity and it may not fit right anymore. I would be nervous about doing that. I'm not going to do that to my gun. So I am going to say that the average person with average resources currently available cannot put a Gen 6 slide on a Gen 5 frame. Don't do it. Can you put the Gen 6 slide onto the... I'm sorry, let me try that again. Can you put the Gen 5 slide onto the Gen 6 frame? Yes, with some dancing. You have to change the spring. You have to get an adapter ring for the guide rod or for the spring there. You can put that in. You can get this spring. These are abundantly available in the aftermarket. And technically, this Gen 6 backplate can fit on the back of the Gen 5 slide, and that makes this work. Can you do that? Yes, with some dancing. Don't do it the other way. That's my complete answer. I hope that suffices. There you go, everybody. Thanks again for stopping by. We'll see you out on the range.